What's up, fight fans? Welcome to the UFC Fight Night 141 or hashtag UFC Beijing pre-fight rating show brought to you by SB Nation MMA. So SBN MMA, that's the YouTube channel that you're on right now. My name's Flyin Brian J. SBN contains websites like Bloody Elbow and MMAmania.com. What me and my friend Wesley Riddle from MMAsucka.com are going to do, give each one of these fights set to go down on Saturday in the early morning at this event, a rating between 1 and 5, 1 to 10, and then at the end I'm going to average them out, and then we're going to tell you what our average rating for the entire thing was. We're going to go over our predictions for post-fight bonuses via Fight of the Night, and also, of course, the Performance of the Night bonuses. What's up, Supply? And then the viewers are our third co-host, so when they put a rating in, I'm going to put that in my spreadsheet as well. Wesley, it's almost Turkey Day. Are you super excited?
I'm definitely excited. Happy Thanksgiving to you, or of course it's early, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody that's watching if you do celebrate this holiday. Looking forward to the day tomorrow. It's going to be just a nice casual one here at my house. Also looking forward to the fight card this weekend. It's one of those cards that I think is going to shock a lot of people. I know that these China cards, especially for the United States people and people in North and South America, are going to have to get up early if they want to watch it because it does start at 3 a.m. But I think it's going to be one of those cards that surprises a lot of us. I think there's going to be some good finishes. We've got a few debut fighters, a few fighters returning as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to this card. I definitely am looking forward to the main event. I think it's going to be an important fight to determine what's going to take place in the heavyweight division next.
Are you more excited for this card or Thanksgiving?
I'm definitely going to have to go Thanksgiving. Personally, I mean the card is pretty good, but it's no pay-per-view. If I had to choose between one of the two to do, if let's say they fell on the same day, I'm going to choose Thanksgiving, enjoy it with family, friends, and so forth.
What's the main event of your Thanksgiving?
Ooh, per food, I would assume.
No, the whole thing, like the whole bit. See, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, not just because it's a eating holiday, but I love seeing my family. It's when I see most of my family is on Thanksgiving. So each one of my family members, they do their little individual Christmases, so I don't see my family as a whole then. I see them all at Thanksgiving. We shoot guns, we shoot clay rock, or clay pigeons after we eat, which is a lot of fun. And then after we do some of that, then we drink beer. So you get the adrenaline rush of shooting guns after eating food, and then you drink beer afterward. Thanksgiving for me is just fantastic. So anything that's happening at your Thanksgiving, what is the main event?
Man, that's a really good question. I feel like there are a lot of things. It's going to be a pretty quiet one. It's just going to be my mom and myself this year. But of course, there's family that I used to celebrate with quite a bit. I mean, we'd always travel from house to house and go visit all these different people. And but I think one of the reasons I love Thanksgiving so much is because it's a great time to be thankful. I feel like sometimes that we're not really appreciative of all the things that we have in life, and sometimes Thanksgiving is just a good time to kind of reflect on all the great positivities that have happened, and even reflect on the lows, because sometimes the lows bring highs in life. So I think that this is a good time of year just to kind of enjoy life, be thankful for your family, friends, the community, all the people that do things for you, and then even sometimes yourself, what you do for other people. So I'm definitely looking forward to that aspect. I think it's always been important, and definitely the food. I love the food. I know this year we're gonna have probably sirloin instead of turkey, but we might throw some turkey in there. We'll have to see. And then I'm a beets guy. I do love beets, so I did request for beets. We got them. Definitely looking forward to that too.
Bears, beets, and Battlestar Galactica, right? Josh Zawadsky says he's looking forward to pumpkin pie. LaShawn Moreno says fudge. Thanksgiving. Oh, I'm a little bit hurt, but Wesley, I'm thankful for you being here and helping me do some pre-fight ratings for this fight card. Let's get started with our guess for the pre-fight rating on the entire night of fights. Wes, 1 to 10. You've already touched on some of the fights that are happening. The main event is important. We get the legend Alistair the Reem over Reem, Alex Morono, Li Jing Liang, the Leech, all of that stuff. But what rating? 1 to 10. What do you got?
I'm gonna predict. I'm gonna go with a 6. I don't think it's not my favorite card of the year, of course, and it's not the most stacked lineup that we've ever seen. But I think one reason I'm looking forward to this a little better than average is because of the entertainment, some of the finishes. I think we're going to see some good finishes. probably some good fights, maybe more so finishes instead of a full 3-round bout. But I think that aspect just keeps it a little bit above 5 for me on average. But I'm curious to see how these fights are broken down individually, how they're going to affect my ranking throughout the whole card. So what's your overall ranking, if you think, for this card?
I was going to go, if I could boil it down to how many fighters have a Wikipedia page, I think 10 out of 24. So you turn that into 10, and it's like a little less than half, so I'd go like 0.45. But you have to think about the pacing of this thing is going to be lightning quick, or at least a lot better than the last fight card was, and a lot of the, especially all of the Fox Sports 1 fight cards are going to be, because it's all on Fight Pass, except for probably the last 4. I don't know what channel it's on in China, but a lot of times when we got these European cards, the whole thing is on Fight Pass until we get to the last 4, because the last 4 are on BT Sports. I don't know exactly how it's working out here, but you got to think that these fights are just going to go one after another. Even if we get a 30-second finish, it's going to move on to the next one. I want to let the listeners know that if you don't want to be here for the entirety of the show, you can get it on the MMA Nation or the Bloody Elbow Presents podcast feed. So just search for that anywhere that you get your podcast, or you could also search for Flyin Brian Show. And the viewers, if you want to participate with us live, put your rating in the comment section, and I'll put it in my spreadsheet. We can average you out as we go. Basically, Wes, in the end, I'm going to go with a 5. It's a middle-of-the-road fight card. It's not the worst. It's got a fantastic couple of fights toward the end. There's a lot of fighters that I don't have any idea who they are, really. But the pacing is going to be good, even though the fight card, I think, starts at like 5 in the morning my time. What time does it start in the Eastern time, Wes?
The Eastern time for the main card starts at 6 o'clock, I believe, in the morning. And then I believe that the very first fight of the night takes place at 3, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check. Yeah, okay. 3:15 a.m. is when it's going to start Eastern time, which means, I guess, 12:15 for Pacific.
I don't know. UFC.com says 2:15 a.m. for Central time, so Eastern time would be 3:15. What did you say for Pacific?
12:15.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Night. So I guess it's going to be kind of weird. Either you want to, well, I guess for the West, you could probably pull an all-nighter if you want. But for me, I'm tempted to go to bed before the card and then kind of wake up, or at least go to bed the night before, wake up early, and then probably throw some breakfast in there so I can get going for the day.
Yeah, that is interesting, and I think we're feeling what a lot of the UK fans, what a lot of the European fans go through on a week-to-week basis. I hope this one really pans out really, really well for us. I won't be here doing a post-fight show. That's why we're doing this pre-fight show. But viewers, what is your pre-fight rating guess for this entire night of fights? Wes, let's talk about the main event of the evening, Francis the Predator Ngannou versus Curtis Razor Blaydes. It's a rematch. Francis got the first one. He won via technical knockout via a doctor stoppage between rounds 2 and 3, I believe. Curtis didn't want to stop, but he had no choice in the matter. We get the rematch here. It's for a really important position in the heavyweight division. How excited are you for it? 1 to 10.
This is a very interesting fight because, again, as you mentioned, that they have fought before, and it's already been a little more than 2 years. We're coming up on 3 years since the first time they fought, and to me, it feels like it was pretty recent. But in that time being, we saw Francis Ngannou have a really good run for a little bit, but then he fought Stipe Miocic, ended up losing a decision, and then one of the worst fights, I guess, in UFC history with Derek Lewis, just a lot of inactivity in that fight. While in the meanwhile, we've seen Curtis Blaydes, ever since that loss, he's stayed undefeated. Most recently defeated Mark Hunt and Alistair Overeem, 2 of the higher guys in the heavyweight division. And he seems to be kind of on an incline right now, while Ngannou, it's kind of hard to tell because he's typically more of a first-round fighter, tries to look for that early finish. So maybe I'd say he's on a little bit of a decline, maybe not terrible. But I think that this is going to be a good test to see who has increased and improved their game more these past 2 years. And of course, it's going to be important because I think the winner of this, probably, if it is Blaydes, he might be propelled to get a title shot. And Ngannou might get propelled to be in a title eliminator or something like that. It's hard to tell, but I think that this fight's definitely important for the heavyweight division. And for that, I'm going to give it a pretty higher score. For me, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. I don't want to give it a 10 because, again, as we saw in Ngannou's last fight, a little bit of inactivity, especially in those later rounds. Curtis Blaydes, more of a wrestler. It may not be the most exciting fight we've ever seen, but it's definitely going to be an important one for this division.
Yeah, absolutely. The divisional significance that this fight has is more than any other fight on the card. So that right there has to propel it above everything else. Francis has been a guy that's been must-watch television in all of his fights, even though, like you said, the fight with Derek Lewis didn't pan out as we thought it would be. I want to mention that I drank some beers with Curtis Blaydes after UFC Lincoln, where in the main event, Justin the Highlight Gaethje knocked out James Vick. And Curtis has a big chip on his shoulder. He's very upset that fight fans that get a little upset that he wrestles. And he said that people, when he fought Mark Hunt, were upset that he didn't stand and bang with the legendary striker in Mark Hunt. And he's not set out to stand and bang with Francis Ngannou here either. He said in an interview with, shoot, I don't even know, but it was posted on all the SB Nation MMA websites, that he likes to wrestle because he likes to win. He's going to go in there and wrestle the Predator because he likes to win. That right there gives it the potential to not be that exciting, but I also think that Blaydes' striking has been progressing. I'm super excited for the fight card. I think that it could headline a lot of events, even one at a weird time in Beijing starting at 12:15, midnight 15 Pacific time. I'm super excited about this one, and a main event doesn't get much better than this outside of a title fight, in my opinion. I'm giving it a 10. Wholeheartedly, this is the best fight on the card. If I were to watch any fight on the card, it would be that one. I seriously think that it could main event any Fox Sports 1 card. But let's move on. Co-main event of the evening, Alistair the Reem Overeem versus the debutant Sergey Pavlovich. Now this one, of course, Alistair, legend. He's must-watch television every time he goes out there. One of the most dynamic strikers in the heavyweight division in any promotion. But Sergey is a debutant, so I don't really know who he is. But the videos I watched, he seems like he's fighting cans in the videos. Now, the records that his opponents have are pretty good, but just the eye test. He's facing a lot of short, chubby dudes. So I don't know if he's coming in as a can crusher, if he's the real deal. I guess anybody with punching power, like it seems Sergey has shown in his highlight video, could put Alistair Overeem down. But I'm just not sure about the dynamic here. The potential can crusher, maybe he'll be something in the UFC. And then we've got Alistair Overeem. I'm going to go with like a 7. What do you think, Wes?
I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I think it's another important heavyweight fight, of course, seeing that Alistair Overeem is definitely in need of a win. I believe that he's dropped his last 2 fights in a row, which is correct, to Francis Ngannou and Curtis Blaydes. He got stopped in both of those fights. I mean, basically all the fights with Alistair Overeem he gets stopped in. But then again, we just saw him last year defeat Mark Hunt and Fabricio Verdum, 2 of the better fighters in the division. I mean, Mark Hunt, his record's not terrific, but he still is able to beat some pretty decent fighters. And Fabricio Verdum, maybe not the same fighter that we once saw about 4 years ago, but he's still got it too. So Alistair Overeem, I think, still has it. His chin is just a little bit testy. Of course, he did get stopped by Ngannou, yeah.
Sorry,
and Curtis Blaydes, yeah, the Curtis Blaydes fight, I mean, Blaydes looked terrific in that fight. The level of competition Alistair is facing that he's losing to, of course he is getting stopped, but he still has potential. He's not losing to bad fighters. Sergey Pavlovich, he's coming in as a very, very hot prospect, and in this fight he's still undefeated. He, of course, hasn't really beat the greatest competition in the world, but he's got some really powerful strikes. He's able to throw down, and he's able to finish a lot of the fighters that he faces off against. He has some good clinch work, good takedowns as well. So he's pretty dynamic, pretty well versatile in his game. And I think that that's going to make for a pretty entertaining fight. I don't think this fight is going to be going to a decision. I think we'll see one of the 2 stopped. I think both have a chance. I think Pavlovich, of course, he kind of loops sometimes with hooks, and they're very, very fast and powerful, so that maybe could be something that he implements in this fight with Alistair Overeem. But Overeem might be able to take it to the ground and get a finish or something like that. I think it's kind of a toss-up. We don't know how Pavlovich is actually going to look when he faces off against one of the better heavyweights in the world, but I'm looking forward to it. My number for this fight, I'm going to give it I'm going to go an 8. I like this fight. A little less than the main event. I think the main event is, of course, what you and I are looking forward to the most. But I think this fight is definitely going to be a pretty exciting one. I think we'll definitely see a finish.
Yeah. Anytime that Alistair Overeem's out there, you think he's either going to knock the person out, could get knocked out. I think there's a small potential there that Alistair does that thing where he uses his range and runs away. Literally runs away. That could not be that exciting. Plus, I don't care to see Alistair get knocked out anymore. I think he's been knocked out like 17 times or something like that. I question the can crusherness of Pavlovich. So I'm sticking with my 7. Because the viewers aren't giving me their live scores here, I'm just going to average our scores out for theirs, and then we'll see what happens at the end. But so they gave that a 7.5. Let's move on to like the third most important fight happening this weekend. Not at UFC Beijing, but the third most important fight happening the entire weekend. Tito Ortiz versus the Iceman, Chuck Liddell. I don't get why the fight's happening. It doesn't seem like Oscar De La Hoya is very excited about it. Even he's the fucking Dana White of the promotership that's putting the fight on. But how excited are you for that bout, Wes? Are you going to buy the pay-per-view or watch it other ways?
I'm going to do what I can to watch it other ways, and if I can, then we'll just see what happens. I don't really know what I think about this. I mean, we're going to see somebody get finished, I would assume, and if not, it's going to be absolutely horrendous. I mean, I would probably I would cut off halfway through if it's already gone past. I would assume it's is it 15 minutes? I don't know.
God, let's hope it's only 15 minutes. I haven't looked, but if it's 25 minutes, fuck us all.
If we go past 10 minutes, you better tune out. Yeah, it's not worth seeing the rest of the fight.
7.5.
Yes, even 7.5, maybe even 5, maybe even 2. No, I'm just kidding.
We could be wrong though. Mixed martial arts is a weird thing.
Yeah, and who knows how they're going to technically perform. I mean, maybe they still have some finishing abilities. Maybe they still have a little bit of crisp action in their game. I mean, of course, we know that their heads really aren't in the right place, but they still might be able to perform somewhat decent. Who really knows? I think we're going in a little blind on that. It's going to be a coin flip. I mean, I don't really know who's going to win. I would say Chuck probably, just because he's already came out victorious a few times before and every time before. But then again, who really knows? It's just an absolute coin flip. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, we got a viewer here. DeFaliban says the pay-per-view is on sale during Black Friday. I still don't think I'm going to buy it. If you go to fight.com right now, it's $40. The co-main event is Darren Wynn versus Tom Lawler, Filthy Tom. Man, I'm not going to watch it. I actually have 4 Thanksgivings to go to this weekend, one each day, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I won't be around to watch it. I'll probably follow on Twitter if Grabaka Hitman at Kaposa, or at Kaposa at Grabaka Hitman, if he's live tweeting the thing, I'll follow it and see. I hope that Chuck knocks Tito out, but I think the opposite is true. I don't understand why it's happening. These guys are ancient. Chuck has won only one of his last 6 fights. I'd give it, out of 10, like a 3, which sucks for some legends. Did you tell me what you would give it?
I didn't. I didn't think of a number. I will give it a 3 as well. I think the legendary aspect is what keeps this above a 1.
Yeah.
If they weren't legends and they were just, I mean, 2 middle of the road guys who were this old fighting, I would give it a 1. I mean, it wouldn't be worth watching. But then again, you kind of want to see what happens because of how prestigious their careers were. So that's what I'll agree with you. A 3 is definitely a little bit worth watching.
It's a fucking train wreck, or it's like when you're at a restaurant and there's a lady that's like screaming at a waiter. Like, man, I don't want to see it, but for some reason I can't stop paying attention to it.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm drawn towards it too.
Yeah, you just can't look away, and then when you leave with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, you talk about it, even though you didn't want to watch it in the first place. You're gonna talk about it on your way out. So I'm looking forward to finding out the result, but I don't care to watch it live. That's what I've got to say about that. But let's move on from that dumpster fire to Song Yadong versus Vince Morales. Song Yadong has 2 UFC victories, both finishes. The first one in the first round versus Bharat Kondare, And then the next one against Felipe Haranches. So that's pretty decent. Vince Morales is making his promotional debut. And I've seen a lot of MMA touts on the side of Vince Morales. Wes, how excited are you to see Song Yadong back in the octagon? Do you think he gets past Vince Morales?
To be honest, I'm actually pretty high on Song Yadong. I remember watching his first fight because he's fought on the last 2 UFC Fight Pass China cards. I believe they were both in China. And he looks like he's got the skill set to become a potential top 15 fighter. Of course, he did get that debut win against Bharat Kahandre. I know the pronunciation was wrong there, but he looked solid in the fight. And then he fought Felipe Arantes. And Felipe's a pretty tough fighter. I mean, Felipe's been around the game for a long time. I don't even remember a time, I'm going to check real quick as I talk, that Felipe ever got finished. And he, in his career, he hasn't been finished. He's only lost 2 fights by submission. And every other fight that he's lost has been by decision. Honey Jason was the last time he was finished, and it was in 2009. And in that time, he beat Maximo Blanco, Yves Yaboin, who was, I mean, kind of fading out. And Godofredo Pepe was a huge win in his career. So, I mean, he's beat some pretty good guys, and he almost beat Kevin Souza, hung in there with Andre Fili, and lost a split decision to Eric Perez, Guito. So, I mean, they're not bad performances or not bad losses. So he's a pretty tough guy, and Yadong was able to finish him. He looked fantastic in that fight. And he is fighting Vince Morales, and I actually never saw Vince fight when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. Unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot about his game besides the fact he did fight in Bellator once and came out victorious in that back in the day, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. But he did lose on Contender Series, did get a victory in Bellator actually recently over a guy named Justin Hugo. I don't want to talk about too much about him just because I really don't know too much about him. I'm going to have to look into him a little more and see what his game plan is about. But I think that this could definitely be a surprising and shocking fight to see. I think that these 2 fighters, especially from what I've seen from Song Yadong, they lay it out there, and they're pretty good skill set wise. So because of that, I'm going to give this one a 6. I'm going to go keep it above a 5. I think it'll be a pretty solid fight overall. And I'm looking forward to seeing this debuting fighter, Vince, to see how he's going to perform and seeing if Song Yadong can continue his impressive streak.
I'm going with a 4 out of 5, or a 4 out of 10. I would give Song Yadong like an 8 out of 10 because I'm excited about this prospect. He's showed some really good things, obviously 2 finishes in his UFC career. But other than his loss on the Contender Series for Vince Morales, I don't know anything about him. So that cuts it in half. 4 out of 10, and that's my entire explanation. I know it's not the best, but this show is very similar to the Care Don't Care preview, which features oftentimes Kid Nate, and Eugene S. Robinson. So I don't have to explain it too much because I kind of model the show after that. Let's move on. Lee the Leech Jingliang versus David Zawada. Now, the Leech. I know him. I love him. He's one of my favorites. Him alone gives this mother son an 8. I don't know anything about David Zawada, but I love the Leech. The Leech would get a 10. Zawada, I don't know much about it. Brings it down 2. What do you think, Wes?
That's a good score. I'm going to go 1 higher. I know that I'm giving a lot of high scores now. We're going to have to see. I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. I'm actually probably, well, I guess number-wise, this tie is what I'm looking forward to the most. I really think it's going to be an exciting fight. We've never seen the Leech in a boring fight. He always brings it out there. He's always, I wouldn't say trying to get a performance of the night or a fight of the night.
I think he truly is, dude, because he used to be the Leech, and he went by that nickname because he grappled people. He basically did the GSP thing where he'd get you to the ground and kind of just hold you there. People got kind of tired of that. He got a performance bonus by just getting a little wild, getting a little crazy, and now people love him as this fucking wild brawler. I think he does that on purpose.
You're probably, you definitely could be right. I never put 2 and 2 together. I like that. That's a good explanation. I think that you're definitely right on that. And from what he's been able to accomplish now, I mean, it's tremendous. He's one of the most exciting fighters, in my opinion, in the UFC right now. If you were to tell me he was fighting on any card, any given point of the day, I would make sure I watched the Leech fight because he's going to bring the heat. It's going to be a fun fight. David Zawada, he was in a really, really good fight with his UFC debut, his last one when he fought Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. I believe, maybe I have them mistaken. There's one Hot Chocolate Danny Roberts, and this is the Hot Chocolate Danny Roberts. And Sawada looked pretty good on the feet as well in this one. I think both are going to bring the heat. I think both are going to be looking for that finish. And for me, it's a 9 out of 10. I think that this is my prediction for fight of the night as well.
Ooh, that's pretty good. I just want to add that the Leech has got a post-fight bonus in 3 out of his last 4 appearances. The only time he didn't get it was in his last time out against Daichi Abe. Before that, he had fight of the night, performance of the night, and then fight of the night before that. Oh, man. And the earliest one, June 17th against Frank Camacho. I mean, that's a recipe for fantasticness right there. Camacho is also a fan favorite because he just goes out there and swings leather, has a really good time. But so we got an 8, we got a 9. Let me see if the viewers got anything. All we have is Kadir Yilmaz saying that we like eye pokes. Okay. I think he's actually talking about, the comment section is talking about Jones versus Gustafsson. We'll touch on that fight if we can toward the end of the video, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to go with the viewers giving it a 8.5 out of 10 and the previous fight a 5.5. Let's move on to Kenan Song versus Alex Morono. I want to say first, I love Morono because he's a big fan of the Viking metal group Amon Amarth. And I like that about him. He's a very intelligent guy. He's well-spoken. He's nerdy about metal, which I like metal too. I've kind of got out of it a little bit because it really doesn't help my anxiety. But I love Alex Morono for loving Jones Viking by Amon Amarth. So I'm looking forward to him just for that reason alone. But I want to let you go first this time, Wes.
This is a solid fight. I just don't know how it's going to play out in it. Morono known a little bit more for his grappling. Kenan Song, of course, he was signed after losing his 2 fights. 2 fights back-to-back. Ended up getting signed and came out, knocked out Bobby Nash very quick in that fight, and then fought Hector Aldana. Almost wobbled a couple times, but, I mean, hung in there, landed some pretty decent strikes. So he's a pretty entertaining guy to watch. Also fought Israel Adesanya back in the day, back in 2015. Adesanya.
No, I was just kidding. I like to say that Adesanya is I done seen ya.
Oh, I done seen ya. I like that. That's clever. I never noticed that. You could say it that way. But yeah, Kenan Song, he is, I mean, who knows how he's going to play in the UFC. If he's going to come out there, just try to stay in a band the whole time, or if he's going to take fights to the ground. Alex Morono, of course, more of a grappler, but he is in a little bit of a pickle right now. He's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. I don't know how this one's going to play out, who's going to come out victorious. But if I were to give a number for this, for how I would rank it, I'm going to go a little bit below average, which would be a 5, and I'm going to say that this one's going to be a 3.5. I don't think it's going to be the most spectacular fight we'll ever see, but I think it'll be solid enough to where we'll get a little bit of enjoyment and entertainment out of it.
Man, I don't know. I honestly don't think that Alex Morono's known for his grappling. I know that he has some submissions, like his guillotine over the deflated and passed over Josh the People's Warrior, but you know, he did some striking. He's a pretty decent kickboxer, even though he looks awkward. He's got a lot of those submissions, but I think he likes to play the game on the feet. I'm excited about Kenan Song. He's 2-0 in his UFC career. Got a round 1 finish over Bobby Nash at 15 seconds. Then he TKO'd Hector Aldana in his next performance because he's a finisher. I don't know how he got into the UFC on a 2-fight losing streak, but nonetheless, he's been in the UFC twice, both finishes, and he's facing my homie in the fellow metalhead. I'm excited about it, man. I'm gonna go, man, like a 6.5. What did you tell me your grade was?
Well, I said a 3.5, but I mean, I like these guys, so I'm gonna go at 4.
All right, yeah, I knew I'd talk you into raising it just a freckle. Yeah, I think it's a decent fight. Alex Morono, I think that he's mostly a stand-up kind of slow, shitty kickboxing guy who sometimes will take the fight to the ground, like when he was facing Muntasiri, who he knew he had to kind of get in tight on Muntasiri. I think the fight's going to be a lot more fun than we think. Now, the next one, Wes, I know that you told me in the pre-fight show, in the pre-fight show, and we were just talking to each other. Hold on one second. Wade Wilson says, I just want to smoke a lot of weed and watch some good fights. I think he's in for a good time, right? First of all, you got Thanksgiving weekend. You might have a 3-day, 4-day weekend, Wade. It's your prerogative to smoke some weed while watching some fights. The pacing's going to be good. I think he's in for a good time. But, Wes, you're not too excited about Hu Zhongyang? No. Wait a minute. So on Tapology, it says the next fight is Wu Yanin versus Lauren Mueller. So let's go with that one. What's your grade for that fight?
So this is the fight. I just don't really know how I'm going to feel about it. I'm not really looking forward to it too much. I think the biggest reason is just because these two are still pretty young in their game, and also Yanin Wu is not really the most terrific fighter we've ever seen. She made her UFC debut and fought Gina Bazzani in a fight where I thought that maybe she would come out victorious, and didn't. She got basically dominated in that fight. And Lauren Mueller, standing across the cage from her, of course she is undefeated, but she only has one finish in her career, and it was a fighter that was making her debut, and she knocked her out in the first round. Besides that, she's fought 2 fighters that don't have records, and she won decisions in those. And of course, she did beat Shayna Dobson in her last fight, and did look impressive in doing so. And then she came out victorious on the Contender Series. But I don't see a finish happening in this fight. I think it's just going to be Lauren Mueller looking for takedowns, trying to hold Yanin Wu on the mat, landing some ground and pound, which maybe there is a potential for a finish in that aspect. But I just don't see this one being a really terrific fight. So for this, I'm going to give it probably the lowest score you'll hear tonight, which for me is just a 1. I just don't really see anything just terrific happening from this one. We're not really learning anything about either fighter. It's just going to be a fighter coming out victorious and over somebody who I think I just don't see Yanin Wu as being a big threat in this weight class.
Yeah, man. Anytime you can basically predict that the fight's going to go to the judges, you have to give it a pretty low grade. I don't know about a 1. I've given many a 1s out in my day, but because I actually know who Lauren Mueller is, I watched her on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, I'm going to go with a 2.148. That's
a good score.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a random score. I'm not terribly looking forward to it. I will look up the result, though, because I know who Lauren Mueller is. Like I said, because of Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. You told me a little bit about Wu Yanin. I didn't know anything about her. But let's go to Hu Yaozong versus Rashad Coulter. Rashad Coulter has to be, and I mean no offense by this, is probably one of the lowest skilled fighters on the entire UFC roster. I mean, he gasses super early. He's lost to some... Who's the guy that's really popular on Twitter?
Chase Sherman.
Yeah, Chase Sherman. He lost to Chase Sherman and looked bad in that loss. I don't trust his skill set. I don't trust his gas tank. And I don't even know who Hu Yaozong is. But, Wes, I know that this fight is going to be some incredibly sloppy, all action for as long as it lasts fight that someone's probably going to get knocked out in. And for some reason, I like that low-level stuff where someone's probably getting finished. And because of that, I'm going with like a 4.5. Even though, like I said, Rashad Coulter's got not that great a skill. Don't know who Yaozong is. I'm pumped for it. Not pumped, but like, I'm looking forward to someone getting finished. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be just a classic heavyweight slobber knocker. I mean, we're going to see
like a sloppy knocker.
A sloppy knocker. That's even better. These two are just going to go throwing punches, swing into the fences, and then rock 'em, sock 'em robots. I just think that these two are just going to try to look for a finish early on. Of course, these two will probably never in their careers crack the top 30 or top 25 at heavyweight. But, you know, it's going to be entertaining for that aspect. Coulter's lost 3 in a row. Cyril Asker defeated Yaozong Hu in his last fight, which was Hu's only loss. So, I mean, it's going to be kind of entertaining, I would say. I'm going to give it a 3.75. A little bit lower than yours, just because. No, I'll give it a 4. I take that back. I'll give it a 4. It'll be. I don't. Of course, this is kind of weird. I'm giving a high score for a fight that's going to be between two low level guys, but we're going to see just a solid heavyweight finish. That's going to be pretty entertaining while it lasts, as you mentioned.
Like I said, when you can predict that the fight's going to go to a decision, you have to give it a low grade. When you can predict that there's going to be a sloppy finish, you got to give it a little bit of a higher one. So I'll chalk that down. Louis Pingyuang versus Martin Day. I don't know anything about either guy, so this is my one. The overlords, as Eugene S. Robinson would say at WME IMG, have told me nothing about them. I don't remember them. I can't possibly tell you anything about the fight. It would be a don't care if I was with Kid Nate or John Nash or Eugene. So it's a 1 for me. What do you think, Wes?
I don't know if I want to give it a 1, just because I've noticed that a lot of these guys are finishers. They seem to get a lot of finishes in their fights. And I listened to an interview the other day where Louis Smolka was talking about his fight, and he actually trains with Martin Day and is pretty high on him. So apparently this Martin Day, he's a pretty exciting guy to watch on the feet. And of course, Smolka was fighting on this card. That's why I brought him up. But Pingyuang Liu is on a pretty impressive win streak right now. But then again, like you said, I don't even remember his last fight when he beat Damian Stasiak. So I don't know these guys, but I think that we could see a pretty. I mean, they've got a variety of finishes in their careers. So I think for that aspect, I'm going to give this one. This is where I'll give a 0.75, a 2.75. I think it could be all right, but then again, like you said, I don't know really anything about either man in this fight.
This is where the UFC is just trying to feed you anybody. Expect that you're going to accept the product as given and watch it. Now, you might watch it and end up being fantastic, but going into it, I don't know anything about it, and that's not my fault. It's the UFC's fault. So let's move on to Kevin Holland versus John Phillips. This is one where neither guy has a Wikipedia page, but I'm extremely excited about it. Kevin Holland looked good in defeat against Thiago Marreta Santos, and maybe he didn't look good skill-wise, but he showed a lot of moxie, a lot of mental fortitude. I liked that he was talking to Santos while he was getting his ass beat, basically. It showed me that he had his wits about him the entire time while eating a lot of huge ground and pound from Marreta, which I think means the sledgehammer. And the sledgehammer was raining down some ground and pound on him, and he was not fazed by it at all. He's also a long, funky kind of striker dude that's super relaxed in there. I look forward to any Kevin Holland fight that's coming at us in the near future. And John Phillips, I actually did look a little bit up about this guy coming into here, and his last loss was to John Bird in his UFC debut, which was another guy that was on the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, which is where Kevin Holland is from. And before that, he came into the UFC on a few good victories with knockout punches in the very first round. So I'm looking forward to this fight a lot. I think Kevin Holland brings some dynamism and some moxie, some bravado to the UFC that we might be looking forward to in the future in the middleweight division. I'm going to go, I would go like a 9 because of Kevin Holland, but I don't know too much about John Phillips other than the little bit I looked up about him. I'm going to go 7.5. Higher or lower than me, Wes?
That's a good score. I did the math while you were talking just to see how many finishes that they have combined. And I believe if I did it right, out of 45 fights, these two have only been a decision 5 times, and which is just an incredible statistic. So that right there kind of gets me excited about the fight. Even if you didn't tell me who they were and just told me that stat, I'd be like, yeah, I want to see this fight. John Phillips, of course, he came in, fought Charles Byrd in his debut, got finished, but he's not really. He's never been a great defensive guy at submissions. He's been finished basically in every fight by submission in those losses, but he's a pretty entertaining, maybe not the most technical, but exciting guy to watch on the feet. And then we've got Kevin Holland. I like the trash talk that he threw in there against Thiago Santos. It makes me a little more excited, and the fact he hung in there with him for the course of 3 rounds is pretty impressive just in that degree, because Santos basically finishes everybody. So coming into this fight, I think that we're going to see a pretty entertaining one. and maybe also a contender for a fight of the night, depending on how this one plays out. If Holland wants to take it to ground, we'll probably see it finishing it. But if this one gets past the first, I think we'll definitely see an exciting fight. For that reason, I'm going to give this one a 7, just a little bit lower than yours. But I think it's still going to be pretty solid overall.
Moving on to bantamweights, Luis Smolka versus Sumudaerji. I don't know if I'm not saying the name right, but that's my best effort. What I think is strange is that Luis Smolka is getting the call back to the UFC at bantamweight. He lost 4 fights in a row in the UFC, all close fights other than his submission loss to Brandon Moreno, and one of them was a fight of the night against Tim Elliott, in one of if not the most exciting fight that I've ever watched in person, because I was at UFC on Fox, Johnson vs. Hayes in Kansas City. That fight was fucking incredible. But, excuse me, what I think is weird is Matheus Nicolau just got cut from the UFC after only losing 1 fight, which was to Dustin Ortiz. He beat Luis Smolka. Luis Smolka's getting the call back to the UFC. I think it's strange. I think it's definitely an indication that the UFC is cutting the flyweight division. So I'm a little weirded out that Smolka is back, even though some guys that he has lost to are now out. Like Moreno's out too, and Moreno finished him in the first round. Nicolau's out. He defeated Smolka via decision, but because Smolka left the UFC, got a 3-fight winning streak, and then is willing to move up to 135 pounds on short notice, of course, against his opponent, I'm a little bit weirded out about that. Still, Smolka, one of the most exciting fighters I've ever watched. I loved his fight against Tim Elliott in Kansas City. I adore him for that performance, the scrambles on the ground, the opportunistic submission game, his long limbs that he can get in weird places. Love it so much. Because I love that, I'm going to give it a 6. Wes?
First, I'd like to say I was shocked. I had no clue that Matheus Nicolau got cut from the UFC. I don't know how I missed the news.
Before just now?
Along with that, yeah,
it was in a...
I don't know if you saw my face, but I was blown away. I was baffled. And I can't believe it.
It was in a slew of cuts. I think he was in the same tweet that Aaron Brandstetter or something, who's close with Ariel Helwani, tweeted out about the flyweights being cut. I think it might have been in the same tweet with Brandon Moreno. So Moreno and Matheus Nicolau got cut in the same swath.
And also with that, Hector Sandoval, who wasn't the most terrific, but
he was super fun to watch.
Yeah, he was an exciting guy. He got finishes too.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good striker. So I knew that the flyweight division was getting cut, but I didn't know they were already released. So I agree with you in that aspect. The fact that they're cutting, or they cut Matheus Nicolau, but they're bringing back Luis Smolka. But then again, aside from all that, I really do like this fight. Smolka, of course, is an exciting guy. I remember that Tim Elliott fight, and it was absolutely spectacular. It was probably way better for you, of course, because you were there live, but seeing it on TV, it was tremendous. Probably one of the top 3 best flyweight fights to happen in the UFC. I think just some of the scrambles in it were absolutely fantastic. Smolka's a pretty entertaining guy. He's got a good personality. Talks some smack in there too, and of course he did lose 4 in a row, but he's exciting to watch. And then the Sumudaerji fighter, I haven't found any fight footage of him. I haven't seen anything about him, but I've heard that he's a pretty lanky guy. They're both pretty tall. And Sumudaerji, he is a really good striker. So I think that this makes for a really good fight, maybe even another contender for a fight of the night. And I believe it's opening up the card. So I'm looking forward to it. What was your score for this one?
I gave it a 6.
I'm going to go a 7. I really like this fight. I don't know if I was going to give it that initially, but thinking about how this could play off in the very end, I think that this could be a really, really exciting way to start off the whole night.
What's even stranger than fiction, just kidding, Stranger Things, just kidding again, but then Smolka getting called back to the UFC when Nicolau got booted, is that Sumudaerji is getting the call to the UFC coming off of a second-round submission loss. I mean, the UFC must just think really highly of this guy Similar to Conor McGregor, I'm not saying they have that much hype behind him, but Conor just lost a couple of weird submissions before he came to the UFC. Maybe that's what they're thinking. It's just kind of weird to have these Asian fighters heading into the octagon for the first time coming off a loss. Just kind of strange. But Zhang Weili versus Jessica Aguilar is the next fight we need to talk about. And I'm going to give it... This is one of my ones. I don't know much about Weili. I do know stuff about Aguilar. And I know that even though she's the former WSOF champion, she has not looked good in her UFC career. She defeated Kalinja Faria in the last fight where she defended the World Series of Fighting Women's Strawweight Championship. And then Kalinja Faria went, I think, 0-3 in the UFC. Yeah, 0-3. So, I don't know. Aguilar has not looked good in her UFC run, even though she beat Jodie Esquibel, who I think she's winless in the UFC as well. I just couldn't care less about this fight, really, so I gave it a 1. You probably don't agree with me, do you, Wes?
I don't agree with you, but not by like a long shot. I mean, I'm down there with you as well. My actual score for this one's just a 2.
Ooh.
The reason I'm giving it a 2 and not a 1 is because I like Weili Zhang. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but she is a really, really exciting. I believe this is in the strawweight division. I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, strawweight division. She's really exciting to watch. I mean, this girl has just a variety of skill sets. We've seen her submit fighters. We've seen her knock out fighters in the first round. And then we saw her win over Danielle Taylor in her last fight. She's pretty exciting. And I think that can make for a good performance on her end. When it comes to Jessica Aguilar, that's what keeps it so much lower for me. And it's not the fact that she's fighting. There's nothing I have against her. It's just the fact that she is not near the fighter she used to be. And for that, I mean, it just brings it down a monumental amount for me. I don't think that we're going to see a lot from her. She doesn't do a lot with her takedowns, and she doesn't do a lot on the feet. So I think Zhang is going to be the one that keeps this one interesting. But Aguilar brings it down for me because she just doesn't do as much as she used to. So I'm giving this one a 2.
So twice as high as I. So that's pretty damn good, Wesley. Let's just look at some odds real fast. Fight goes to the judges. Let's see. Fight goes to decision is minus 280. So that's almost a near. That's like 3-1. The fight sees the judges, which that right there is not very good either. So I'm just kind of defending my 1 out of 10. But the curtain jerker, the first fight of the night, is Yan Xiaonan versus Suri Kondo. I have a rule for myself that the first fight of the night can get no less than a 2 because it's the first fight of the evening, which means you get to sit down in front of your television. You're about to watch some professional violence bestowed right upon you, in front of you, in your own living room, while you're allowed to drink beer or smoke some of that Mary Jane like the people in the comment section are talking about. And it basically means that the fights have kicked off, and here we go. It's the greatest promotion in the world, putting on some of the most high-level technical mixed martial arts you could possibly imagine ordinarily. So Yan Xiaonan, she often lets out weird screams between rounds. She's a striker. She's got some tenacity. She's got some gumption. I still don't really care about the fight. I'm going with a 2. Wes?
I like this one because they're both strikers. And I like your mentality on this. It's one I should probably implement. The first fight being just a good way to start off the evening. Or for us, it's going to be the morning with a cup of coffee or whatever.
If you're in the West Coast, you could just be ending the day.
Yeah, just getting a late night snack or late night drink. So this is I think that this one's going to be entertaining because they both come from kind of striking backgrounds. I know Kondo was a kickboxer, I believe, and had a pretty decent record. It was like 15-1 or something, either in kickboxing and boxing. I think it was kickboxing. And Xiaonan Yan, she's finished a lot of her fighters. Basically, her only finishes are on the feet. So I think it could be pretty good. Xiaonan beat Viviane Pereira in her last fight. Now Vivian's over in Invicta, and Suri got finished by a body kick in her last fight. Of course, the kick is what finished the kickboxer, and almost lost her UFC debut, from what I remember. But I think it'll be okay. I don't think it'll be anything spectacular, but I think it'll be a pretty solid fight. I'm gonna give this one a You gave it a 2. I'm going to give this one just a little bit higher. I'm going to give it a 2.75.
Okay, let me punch that into the old system there. And so our final tally is, I guessed I would give it a 5. I ended up giving a 4.97. Boo! Almost spot on. You guessed a 6. You ended up giving a 5.19. You were pretty darn close. Not as close as I. You gave it a little bit higher. And the viewers, well, we were a little bit too quick for them. They weren't too close on their guesses. Let's move into, what's your prediction for fight of the night, Wes? I know you mentioned it a couple of times who you think it could be, but what is your official prediction?
My official prediction is going to be, it's got to be the Leech. I can't go against it. It's going to be the Leech versus David Sawada. Really looking forward to it. I think they're both going to bring all the heat, try to look for that finish, and it's going to be really exciting to watch.
I'm going to go with Kenan Song versus Alex, the Great White Morono, and that's a little bit because I've never met Alex Morono. I've never even talked to him, interviewed him, never even like tweeted him, but I like him a lot because of his love for metal. I've said that a few times. He might get finished by Kenan Song, but he's got a lot of tenacity. He showed that in a few of his UFC performances. I think that Song versus Morono has the potential to be the fight of the night. Wes, what is your prediction for the 2 post-fight bonuses?
Oh, that's going to be a tough one. Well, this will show who I picked for the card. But in the main event, I am taking Curtis Blaydes. I love the guy. I love his style, to be honest. I know a lot of people don't like it, but he's one of those guys that, with his wrestling background, he's got some vicious ground and pound, and that's what I love about him. I've got Blaydes. I think, those elbows are vicious. I think he finishes the fight, and I think he's going to get a performance. I think he's going to look really good in this one. But then again, who knows how Ngannou is really doing at this stage, and he could be falling.
I honestly don't think that Ngannou's there mentally still. So I think you're right with that Blaydes pick.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I'm going to give the first one to Blaydes, and then the second one I'm going to give, if I'm scrolling through the card, I feel like there are some good possibilities. I'm going to give it to Yadong Song. I think he's going to show up, look good again in his fight, and get a performance tonight in front of what I hope, I don't want to say it because I've been wrong before, but it is his hometown. Well, he's from China, and his card's in China, so it's his home country.
Country's good enough. I'm going to go with Song as well. I think that he gets another finish, making it 3 in a row for that young, promising prospect. And I'm going to go with Sergey Pavlovich, just because Alistair Overeem's chin is glass.
I forgot about Serge.
Yeah, I didn't give that fight a very high score because I don't know anything about him. But what I do know about that fight is that Alistair Overeem gets finished fantastically.
You're very right on that. I mean, I can remember, I feel like there hasn't been a non-exciting Alistair Overeem loss. That sounds terrible to say, but I mean, Stipe Miocic, Curtis Blaydes with some of the greatest elbows I've ever seen in MMA.
Ngannou.
Oh yeah.
Whenever Alistair Overeem gets finished, fucking the greatest finish maybe ever is Antonio Bigfoot Silva knocking out Alistair Overeem in the 3rd round. So Alistair Overeem has been part of some of the best finishes on the wrong side of it, of course, in mixed martial arts history. It could happen again on Saturday for Pavlovich.
I forgot about the Bigfoot one, and then he backed it up with getting front kicked in the face by Travis Brown with one of the best front kicks we've ever seen. I forgot about that too. You're spot on with it. He definitely, if he gets a finish, you're probably right. He's going to get that performance of the night. I'll stick with what I got. I like having a little diversity in this. But I think you definitely got something going on that.
Well, I think that Alistair Overeem might be the best getting finished person in mixed martial arts history. He looks really good on the wrong side of highlight films.
The only other one I could think of is probably Todd Duffy.
Oh God, the knockout from Frank Mir.
Yeah. Oh man, that was
super wide right as he just eats one. Oh, that's fun
and just
shit.
Went crashing down, tumbling. That's the only other fighter I can think of that's just as good as Alistair at getting finished.
So that's our entire show. Wesley, tell the viewers where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on, or if you want to find me too, you can find me over on Twitter at MMA. What am I talking about? I write for MMA Sucker. MMAsucker.com. You can check out some of my work over there. Then on Twitter, it's not at MMA, but it's at all that MMA. You can find me there, where I do all my communication with everybody on Twitter and in the Twitter world. So you can find me basically there, and that's basically it for me. So thanks again for having me on the show. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching, and we'll hopefully catch up with you all another time.
Thanks a lot for being here, Wesley. Thanks a lot for being here, viewers. This show has been brought to you by SB Nation MMA, which is including websites like bloodyelbow.com and MMAmania.com. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you the next time that Wesley and I do a pre-fight show, or the next time that I do a post-fight show right here on the channel. Thanks again for watching, fans. Namaste. Thanks for watching, fans. Namaste.